Well, hi there. How are you today? Greetings from Guadalajara, Mexico. I am here with my amazing wife, Pink Firefly, who is actually sitting about 7 feet away from me during this podcast. So I'm sure she will interject some of her viewpoints into this topic today, because we're going to talk about our 3-year anniversary, which is one of the reasons we're here. I was in Paraguay, I was going to go to Panama, could not get the paperwork done on time. It was a long story. So instead I diverted the trip to Guadalajara, Mexico. And since Pink Firefly and I are living apart for a few months during this transition to Dubai and various other places, I said, hey, why don't you fly down to Guadalajara, which is probably ending up being my favorite city in Mexico, maybe. I'm not going to say that definitively yet, but maybe. And so we have been here for about a week. We'll be here for another few days. So we're here for about 2 weeks. We are in Andares, Zapopan. See, I try to spin like a Latin accent every time I say Spanish words. Instead of saying Andares, I say Andares. So I sound less American, but you know how that goes. Anyway, I don't have a set structure for this podcast today. Pink Firefly and I have just celebrated, we're celebrating it today, even though technically it was last week, our 3-year wedding anniversary. So 3 years as a married couple. Now, and I've mentioned this before, my wife and I have a slightly different opinion about what our anniversary is. Let me clarify that. To her, she is a more traditional person. The anniversary is the anniversary of the wedding when we got married, which was August 18th, 2018, right? Yes, thank God. See, when you're a man, you're a husband, you have to remember that date or your wife gets sad.
8/11.
So, 8/11? What? August 11th, yes, correct. Okay. So in her opinion, if you ask her how long she's been married, she uses that as the start date. So if you use that as the start date, as of this recording, we have been married for 3 years and 1 week as of today, as of the date of this recording. And as always, these podcasts go up several weeks after I record them, so don't match the actual date. So if you ask me how long I have been married or we have been married, and this is an opinion I've had since day one, years and years ago, even before Alpha Male 2.0, back when I was a young guy, in my opinion, you are married, and I've talked about this in great detail, like in the Ultimate Open Marriage Manual and some of my books and blog posts about this topic. You are married as soon as you move in with a serious girlfriend. You might call her a wife, you might call her a girlfriend, it might be an LTR, it might be an OLTR, it doesn't matter, because at that point you are living the lifestyle of a married man. And you could tell me, and guys will say this, like, well, she's not my wife, I'm not married, we didn't sign anything, doesn't matter. You're living the lifestyle of a married guy. Well, I can fuck other girls, doesn't matter. You're living the lifestyle of a married man if you live with a woman full time. So in my opinion, we have been married 3.5 years. So it's kind of interesting because I have talked about before how in traditional marriages, the 3-year mark is the danger zone. That's where things start going wrong in most traditional marriages. But I've also talked about how in OLTR marriages, you really don't have that dynamic in 3 years. Now, maybe you have some other dynamic beyond 3 years that I'm not aware of, because I've never personally had an OLTR marriage. It's the first one I've had, hopefully the last one I'll ever have. So maybe down the road, there'll be some other dynamic, but so far, our marriage is not only good, I would classify it as great. And I asked Pink Firefly a few months ago, maybe late last year, I asked her, and you could correct me on this if I get this wrong. I said, how happy are you, once we hit that 3-year mark of living together, I said, how happy are you in terms of your relationship with me, your marriage to me? And I gave her like 4 levels. I said, you're happy, you're happy, you're really happy, or you're orgasmic. You're like coming every day. It's so amazing. And she thought about it for a second. She goes, well, is there a level between really happy and orgasmic? Is there a level between there? I said, well, sure. She goes, I'm there. So that's pretty good after living with each other for 3 years. It's a lot of married couples, most married couples. And when I say married couples, I'm also talking about live-in couples who are not married, but they boyfriend, girlfriend, LTRs, they live together. Can't really say that after 3 years. They could say it after a few months, right? They might be able to say it after a year. And they could certainly say that after they have their first baby. All these artificial NRE extenders I've talked about in my other content. NRE, by the way, is new relationship energy. That is the honeymoon period when everything is amazing and wonderful because everything is new. You get over that pretty quick when you live with someone, particularly if you're monogamous and traditional and all that good stuff. So first, let me cover a few things of some predictions that guys made when I first announced that I was going to get married to Pink Firefly. So, and all these comments are still on my blogs, they're still on my old forums, they're all there, you can read all this stuff. The first one was, there were a bunch of guys who said, this isn't gonna work. The way you described it, where you have like this prenuptial structure and it's wide open and you're gonna fuck all these girls and she's gonna fuck all these guys and that's just not gonna work. That's not gonna work. Well, we're 3.5 years in. 3.5 years in as a married couple, and we're also going into our, I think, 7th year together, right? Over 6 years together, right? So we've been together more than 6 years, married for half that time. Everything's not only fine, it's really, really good. Would you classify our marriage as really good? And be honest, don't just say that because I'm sitting here. Yes. Yeah, okay, so yeah, so far those guys were wrong. Now who knows, 10 years down the road, who knows what's going to happen. But so far, not only has it worked better than I ever thought. And I mentioned that last year when we were together for the entire year last year, 2020, we had like probably our best year. I mean, this has been a pretty good year too, but this year's been weird because of all these transitions and moving we've been doing, or I've been doing, I should say, and living apart and visiting each other for a few weeks at a time. And so this year's been kind of strange, but this year's also been good. It's not like we fight all the time or any of those kinds of problems. Matter of fact, I said this before, in 2020, other than one little thing in February, we had no drama all year. So again, try to find a live-in couple or a married couple that's been together for many, many years who can say with a straight face, they had a year with no drama. Not gonna happen. So it was almost an entire year, 10 months, 11 months, something like that. So pretty damn good. So that's the first thing. A lot of guys said, Caleb's gonna lose his edge. Caleb's gonna lose it because, so the big thing, a lot of guys were pissed off way back when I announced this 4 years ago or something in my blogs, is that I mentioned I got her an engagement ring. Oh my God, he got Pink Firefly an engagement ring. That's it. He's a pussy. He's not gonna be a beta. He's going to puss out. He's going to stop fucking other girls. He's going to stop talking about sex on the internet. He's going to stop talking about dating, just like Paul Janka, just like Mystery, just like Neil Strauss, all these other guys. As soon as they settle down, they immediately get all conservative. Oh, he's going to become a Christian now. And you can go read this stuff on my blogs. All these comments are still there. Has that happened? No, hasn't. As far as I can tell. Matter of fact, my daughter has told me that I'm even more alpha now since marrying Pink Firefly. Matter of fact, I've noticed that I've been swearing more often. I don't know what that's about. I don't know why I'm swearing more often, especially like these podcasts. I mentioned this prior podcast. I'll listen to these podcasts after it's done, and I'll think to myself, God, I'm saying the word fuck a lot. I don't think I said it that often. Jeez. So that was another thing they said. Another thing they said was, okay, now Caleb will get monogamous. Now he'll get monogamous because he's gonna move in with this woman and she's gonna like boss him around and yell at him all the day, get jealous and pissed off, and he'll stop having sex with other women. No, every week I'm still having sex with other women, not nearly as much as I used to. It's gone down, which is what I said would happen. And it'll continue to go down over time. But no, that hasn't changed. So none of this alpha male stuff, none of this frame setting stuff, alpha male 2.0 stuff has declined or gotten worse or eliminated in 3.5 years, at least in my opinion, of marriage, 3 years in her opinion of marriage. So just about all those guys who predicted those things were wrong. Matter of fact, I can't think of a single negative prediction someone gave me back then that has come true. Another thing some guys said is, oh my God, you're gonna let your wife fuck other guys? Oh my God, she's gonna fuck other dudes left and right. She's gonna go to the bars and get laid. She's gonna go on Tinder and just bang dudes. And I could never be married to a woman who has like 12 cocks inside her. And again, if you don't believe me, go look up these comments. They're all still there on my old blog posts. Guys said this. Guys still say this. Matter of fact, like on my Facebook group. You're in a marriage where your wife can fuck other guys? Oh my God, I would never let my wife fuck all these other guys and all this stuff. So I'll ask Pink Firefly. So let me ask you a question. So do you, and be totally honest, do you ever go to bars or clubs looking to hook up with dudes because you're allowed to?
No, definitely not.
Do you often like go to like Tinder and look for guys to get laid? Or any other website? Any other dating app? Is that something you regularly do?
No.
Okay. Here's a question, now answer this honestly. Have you ever thought, well, Caleb is fucking other girls, so I'm gonna go fuck other guys because he's fucking other girls? Have you ever had that thought and acted on it? Or even have you had that thought? Be honest. No. Okay. Okay, so there you go. Now, I've mentioned this before, so can I say your age? People know your age. Can I say your age? Is that right? So Pink Firefly is 41. You are a Christian. You're not really a practicing Christian anymore, but we went to church a few times. She wanted me to go to her new church a few times. I went with her a few times. I said, okay, I'll go 3 or 4. And I drove me insane, although I like the music. So what else? You are a Christian. You were raised in a Christian household, yes? More or less?
Yeah.
You have not had sex with lots of guys. You've been, most of your life, you've been kind of a boyfriend girl, right? You've had boyfriends, right? You were not super promiscuous when you were in your early 20s like most girls are, right? Not at all. You had sex, but you didn't have a lot.
Not very. I didn't lose my virginity till I was almost 21.
You were 20?
Yeah.
I thought you were 19.
20.
You were 20 when you lost your virginity?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
all right. Okay. So would a woman like that, especially a woman in her 40s, although early 40s, and as I've talked about, as a woman ages, her ASD grows, do you think a woman like that is going to go out and just get laid just to make it fair? Because she can. Now, here's something that's really interesting. If we had a polygamous marriage where I said to Pink Firefly, all right, listen, I'm going to fuck all these chicks, but you can't fuck anyone except me because that's disrespectful to me and you need to be a good wife. That would be different. Because then, and I've seen a lot of guys try to do this in the Western world, it always ends up happening where the woman says, well, F you. I'm going to go do this. If I'm not allowed to, I'm going to go do it. I need to make it fair. But when you tell a woman, you can do this if you want, this is something, if you really want to do it, go ahead and do it. Then she goes, oh, I can, therefore I don't need to. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense to the masculine brain, but it does make sense in a woman world. So no, Pink Firefly is not out having sex with other dudes. She is certainly not out having sex with multiple dudes. That's just not the phase of life that she's in. Now, to be clear and to be fair, and I've mentioned this before, if Pink Firefly, actually she wouldn't do this. So I'm going to take a different example. If the typical woman who was like 22, if I married like a 22-year-old chick, a pretty 22-year-old girl, most likely she would be going out and fucking other guys all the time because I've had MLTRs like that. And that's what they do, young girls. So this is one of the reasons why I went out of my way to settle down with a woman who was who was around age 35. That was kind of what I wanted. And this was before I even met Pink Firefly. So I kind of mapped out, and I've talked about this, I've mapped out kind of what the ideal woman would be for me in terms of settling down. And I put down 35-ish, mid-30s, but still really attractive and looks very young. And Pink Firefly, those of you who have met her or seen her, I mean, certainly when I first met her, she was 33. She looked like she was 25. She still looks like she's in her 20s, even though she's 41. So she's blessed with pretty good genetics. Her mom is in her 60s, and not so much anymore, but when I first met her mom, 6 years ago or whatever, I'm like, God, her mom looks just a few years older than me. And her mom is like well into her 60s. So Pink Firefly's operating under some good genetics. But anyway, the reason I did that was because I didn't want to settle down with a woman who, number one, had not yet been through her crazy phase. I wanted a woman who was already through that. Okay, I didn't want to manage that in a marriage. I don't mind managing that in an FB or MLTR relationship, but in a marriage, I don't want to manage that. And number two, women don't really become who they fully are until they hit about their mid-30s. I've talked about ad infinitum about age 33, the age at which women's ASD just skyrockets. And so what I didn't want to do was to settle down with a woman who was like maybe 27, and she's this wonderful carefree woman, and then she hits 33, and then she gets all conservative and clamps up and starts getting pissy about sex and things like that. I wanted to settle down with a woman who had already been through all of these stages. That was my rationale. Now, if you say to yourself, I would never marry a woman who's 35 or older, disgusting, gross, and you're going to start quoting a bunch of red pill stuff about SMV, that's fine, do whatever you want. These are decisions that I made for myself. Women are in a constant state of dynamic change. And so If you settled down with a woman who was around 33, 34, 35, 36, somewhere in there, most of the changes that she's going to go through, she's already gone through them. And I did not want to settle down with a woman who had not been through all those changes, if that makes sense. So let's talk about why I think our relationship and our marriage has worked so well. A few things. Number one is I do everything I teach. So if you have read the Ultimate Open Marriage Manual at open-marriage.com, that is an entire book full of real-world proven techniques on how to manage a live-in non-monogamous relationship with a woman. And I do literally everything in that book. Things like zones. So when we were in the same house earlier this year, there were parts of the house that were hers, there were parts of the house that were mine, and there were one or two areas that were shared. But these places were designated very clearly, so that way we didn't have to argue all the time like most married couples do about why did you leave this knife in the kitchen, and why did you leave this pillow over here, and why did you have your friends come over and do this here? None of those arguments exist in our marriage because we have areas where we live that are either mine, hers, or both of ours. And the areas that are both of ours, frankly, when we were together in the same house, was really our bedroom. That was really it. And even then, we had to work a little bit that first year on figuring out how to manage the logistics of a shared area. So we do that. In terms of the non-monogamous aspect of our relationship, I am completely open and transparent about what I'm doing if I'm asked. So the model that I have followed, and this is just a model that works for Pink Firefly and I, if you are married or you are living with a woman or you're going to live with a woman under an OLTR model, it might be a little different because every woman is different about this, and frankly, men are different about this too. The model that I've followed is I don't sit down after I have sex with someone and just do a whole debrief and tell Pink Firefly all about the woman's pussy. I don't do that. Okay? I don't think that'd be productive. I don't think that'd help anybody. But whenever Pink Firefly asks me questions, then I tell her and I give her all the information she wants, and I'm totally honest and transparent about it. So one interesting dynamic is the last few months when we've been living semi-apart is that she's been a little more concerned about the women I've been with more than when we were together, which kind of makes sense. And so she asked me to send some pictures of some of the girls I was with. And I did that in various different countries. I actually sent her pictures. And once or twice I sat down and actually went through the pictures, and this is so-and-so, and she's a waitress, and this is so-and-so, and she does this. And remember, we kind of went through that. And Pink Firefly is one of these women, and you correct me if I'm wrong about this. Pink Firefly is one of these women who is more relaxed when she has more information. So if she feels like, and I had to learn this when we first moved in together, if she feels like I'm hiding something, or not even if I'm hiding something, if she doesn't know, she gets more jealous and more uncomfortable. Then if she knows things, she calms down somewhat. She's not 100% perfect. Doesn't mean she'll have zero jealousy or zero concern. But she calms down a lot because she knows. Now, this is very different from other women I've been with in the past where it was the opposite. If they knew, they got more upset. So HBM, who was my quote-unquote girlfriend before Pink Firefly, before I ever met her, was the opposite. When she knew more information, she'd get upset. So I learned, okay, I better not tell her much unless she really, really wants to know. And I kind of brought that into my relationship with Pink Firefly, but Pink Firefly is the opposite. The more she knows, the more relaxed she becomes. So I learned early on to be pretty transparent about everything I'm doing. So that's another reason why I think this has worked. And again, that dynamic is different per couple. In terms of disclosure and how much stuff you're doing together or doing independently and how much you talk about that with your spouse, it really will depend on the person, depends on the man, depends on the woman. But that's the dynamic that her and I have. Another reason I think we're doing so well is, and I talk about this in great detail in the Open Marriage book, open-marriage.com, is that I mandated to Pink Firefly as soon as we moved in together, not married, as soon as we moved in together, that we're going to go see a marriage counselor or couples counselor on a semi-regular basis forever. Forever. Even if we think we don't need it, we're going to see her forever. And her reaction was the common reaction, well, why would we see someone? Nothing's wrong. I said, exactly. I learned from my first marriage that most people, and this is true, you ask guys who've been divorced or women who've been divorced, you'll ask them, they'll say the same thing. They ended up going to see a marriage counselor when it was already too late. So that's what I did in my first marriage. Yeah, toward the end of the marriage, when things were horrible, we hated each other, then we kind of broke down and said, all right, fine, we'll go to marriage counseling. And we kind of did it just to show that we did it. It didn't really help because we were too far gone. So I don't want to get to that point. I don't want to ever get to the point where it's too far gone. I want to attack the problems when they're little. That's really important to me. And that also, by the way, has a lot of parallels to how you manage your MLTR relationships. Tackle the problems when they're little. FBs don't matter because you'll never have problems with FBs. And if you have a problem, you just next them and find a new one. But an MLTR and OLTR both, you want to tackle the problems when they're little. So whenever we have a disagreement that we can't come to an agreement upon, which is rare, we don't have a lot of those, we know that in a week or 2 or 3, we're going to be talking to the counselor, the 3 of us, and we'll hash it out then. And that way with the counselor, we have a neutral third party. That's another advantage of having a marital counselor. Now, I know what a lot of you guys are going to say. Well, Caleb, marital counselors are left-wingers and they're all feminists. And what if they just take the woman's side and blah, 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 blah. I have not yet had that problem to the point where it bothers me. If that becomes a problem, then I'll deal with it then. As always, you have to follow the rule of 3, which means that the first counselor you hire probably will not work out. You'll have to fire him or her, get a second counselor. She probably won't work out. Fire him or her, get the third counselor. The third counselor will probably be the one that works. And that's pretty much what happened. We had a counselor who we liked. She was really sweet, but she was too nice. She was too nice to us. She wasn't professional enough. And she was like, you guys are so great. I just love you guys. And she couldn't take sides. She couldn't be objective because she liked us too much. So we had to get rid of her, unfortunately, find a new counselor. And the counselor we work with now is really good. We both really like her. She's very impressive. We've been using her for about, how long have we been seeing Joanne? 2 years? Yeah, about 2 years. And even when I am traveling, we will still do these appointments. We do them over Zoom, so the 3 of us are on Zoom. Matter of fact, since COVID occurred, most of these counselors only do Zoom appointments, which is fine, so that still works. So that's another reason why I think this has worked so well is in my first marriage, and in most marriages, you don't have this. You have a disagreement, you both just get mad at each other, and one, dominates the other. And then the weaker person gets more resentful and pissed off, and it festers and becomes a problem later in the marriage. So I don't want that to happen. So with a counselor involved, you minimize the odds of that occurring. Now, do you bring the odds of problems occurring to 0? No, of course not. But you minimize the odds. It's all about playing the odds here. Now, here's something I will say. So the first year we were married, okay, so this would probably be maybe 6 months in, so between the 6-month mark and the 1.5 year mark, I think was when this happened. That was the hardest year for us. Do you agree, that first year? Mm-hmm. That was we had some issues. Yeah, we didn't have any catastrophic issues, but we had some issues. And they were all, correct me if you disagree. They were all around getting used to living with this person, and getting used to living with this person who is so different. Do you agree with that, or is there more? Yeah. So Pink Firefly and I, and most of you will not have this problem. So don't think you will have this problem because most of you are not crazy extremists like I am. Pink Firefly and I are radically, radically different in terms of diametric opposites in most ways. And the good news there, and I've written about this, is that our sexual attraction for each other and our desire for each other is still very, very, very strong. Matter of fact, in some respects, our attraction, not love, we're talking about attraction now, our attraction for each other is probably stronger than it was 3 or 4 years ago, which is, again, pretty rare. And so one of the reasons for that is, or maybe the primary reason for that is, we're such opposites. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is communication is really difficult when you live with someone who has the opposite communication style. So it took us about a year, I don't think it was a year, maybe it was 8 months, to understand and get used to living with this crazy human being. When I say crazy, I'm talking about me and her. Crazy human being who's the opposite of me and views the world very differently than me, and getting used to doing that. So we had to have that period of acclimation. But once we got through that period, smooth sailing, and it's been smooth sailing ever since then. And like I said, we've been together for, over 6 years in some form or fashion. And those are the only problem areas we had was during that, that 8-month period, maybe after we had been living with each other for about, I want to say 6 or 7 months. Yeah. And again, we had the counselor to help us out through that. So we had a support system in place. Plus we had zones and all the other techniques I talk about in my books and my blogs and things like that. So it wasn't like we were on our own. Whereas I felt that way in my first marriage, where I felt like I was kind of on my own. I'm married to this woman, and if we have a disagreement, what recourse do I have? I don't really have any. I could get divorced and destroy my life, maybe, or I could just put up with it and be resentful, or I could scream at her and bully her, which would cause drama. So I didn't have any support system. I felt like I was on my own. Whereas now, I have systems in place that I know work, that have been proven to work with other people. that have been proven to work with me in prior relationships, although they weren't live-in relationships. Plus we have the counselor. Plus also, I made sure to settle down with someone who had all the traits that I wanted, including traits that minimize problems. For example, item number one for me, for a woman, non-physically, is low drama and low jealousy. Obviously, with my lifestyle and my personality, I need someone who is low drama. I cannot be with someone who flies off the handle all the time. That would never work for me. That relationship would probably last 3 weeks and I'd be gone. And obviously, I need someone with low jealousy, not zero jealousy. Very few women in the world are going to have zero jealousy. Very few men in the world are going to have zero jealousy. So not zero jealousy, but low jealousy, someone who understands these dynamics and accepts them. So that was really important. And also someone who wanted the same thing as I did on the macro. So what's interesting about me and Pink Firefly, I should say Pink Firefly and I, that's proper grammar. Pink Firefly and I is that even though we're opposites, when we do things like go look at houses to buy or look at apartments, things like that, usually houses, we like the exact same things. So if we go to a hotel or a Airbnb or whatever, we will hate the exact same things and we will like the exact same things. So that's kind of weird when you consider that we're so opposite. Things like aesthetics and things like that, we really share in common. Matter of fact, the house that we lived in rural Vancouver, Washington for several years, I did a walkthrough YouTube video of that house. She actually picked out that house when I was traveling abroad in South America. She just walked through it with a Skype call and just walked through the house. And she really liked it. And I said, it looks good to me. Fine. And when I saw it for the first time, I'm like, okay, this is great. So it's cool that I can trust her to make these decisions. And she can trust me to make these decisions, knowing that we will probably like what the other person decides in terms of the ambiance and the look and feel of certain things in our lives. So I made sure to settle down with someone who had that. Whereas in my first marriage, I was with someone who had a very different opinion about these things and very different opinions about life in terms of not only the micro, but the macro. So if you compare my two marriages, my first marriage was with a woman who disagreed with me on the micro and the macro. My current marriage is with a woman who agrees with me on the macro and she disagrees with a few things on the micro, which is fine. You're not going to agree about everything. That's not how that works. But you want to make sure that the things you disagree with are minor and little and manageable. So that way, if you compromise on these things, you don't feel like you're giving up too much, if that makes sense. Plus, I forgot about this. Plus, Pink Firefly and I had the OLTR talk, which I've talked about in my books and my blogs. This is not the talk where you give an MLTR. This is the OLTR talk. We had that talk and I planned it out. I gave her like 5 points. I remember having this discussion in her apartment, sitting on her couch. And I went through the 5 or 6 things. This is what the OLTR talk is, by the way. You go through all the negatives of you that a woman will have to experience if she moves in with you. So let me see if I can remember the 5 things. I told her, obviously, I am non-monogamous. I will always be non-monogamous. It's not like when I get older, I'm going to not be non-monogamous anymore. I will always be non-monogamous. Now I'll be very flexible about how I do it. I'm not going to go crazy. I'm almost in my 50s. It's not like I'm, out banging, 27, 19-year-olds all the time. That's not what I want, but I will be non-monogamous. So that was 1. Number 2 was I'm moving out of the country in a few years. So if you don't want to move out of the country, you want to stay in America the rest of your life, you should go marry someone else because I'm getting the fuck out of here. That was number 2. Number 3 was, let's see. I work. I work a lot. I work long hours. I work every day. That's the most important thing in my life. I'm following a mission. If you're the kind of woman who gets pissed off that her husband is working all the time or works a lot, you need to go marry someone else because that ain't me. As a matter of fact, that was the one thing that bothered her more than the non-monogamy. The non-monogamy, she's like, all right, whatever. And the work stuff, she goes, well, that's a concern. And so that's where we had to come up with some systems. Let's see. Number 4 was, I have children. I said, I have children. They're grown children, but they're millennial children. That fucking goes. At any point, any one of my kids could say, hey, I'm running into financial trouble. Can I move back in with you for a while? And I would probably say yes, given certain parameters. So I said, you need to understand that I have grown children. Just be aware of this. Better than little kids, but that is a possible negative that she would have to encounter if she lived with me full time for the rest of her life. Number 5 was, what was number 5? Children. I said children. What was the?
Children, me getting pregnant, you don't want us to have any more kids.
I don't want any more. But was that one of the 5 things I covered that day?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, she reminded me. Great.
She's like, are you sure? You said, are you sure? have a baby.
Oh, I forgot all about this. Okay, so if you didn't hear her correctly, she said, she reminded me, I said, so what did I say? I don't want any more kids, right?
You said, I don't want any more kids.
Right.
And I need to make sure
you're cool with that.
Not wanting to have children. Because you said, I'm going to travel. I already have my kids. I
Yep.
want to start over.
Yeah. Okay, right. So if you didn't hear her, I said to her.
You said, I don't care if you change your mind. You said, it's not my problem if you change your mind. We've already had this talk.
Yes. Yes. Right. You see my tone I used? Yeah. So I said, I'm not having any more fucking kids. If you want to be with me, then that means you are cool with never having any kids, because Pink Firefly doesn't have any children. You got to be cool with that. And if you change your, and as she just said, if you change your mind later, I just gave you this talk now, so that will not be my problem later. That'll be your problem. Do you want kids? Why not? Have you changed your mind?
No.
No. You're getting up there for having children. You're 41. Although a lot of your friends, a lot of our mutual friends, in their early 40s are having fucking babies.
Right. That's normal nowadays.
Yeah, women I went to high school with who are in their 40s are having kids. What the hell?
People are saying your ship hasn't sailed yet.
That's true. Are your friends encouraging you to like change your mind and have kids before it's too late?
No, they're just saying, you're saying your ship sailed a long time ago.
Yeah.
You don't really, but they say your ship, if you really do want kids,
that's
has
true.
Not sailed. And I said, well, in my opinion, it has.
Yeah. Well, technically it hasn't.
I was gonna have a way, in my early 30s, 31. 30.
So was your number 35? What was your cutoff number? Because usually women it's 35. Is that your number or no?
I didn't have a specific number. I just knew I was getting older, and I was like, okay, that's just.
Do you remember when you and I first started seeing each other, and I asked you about, do you want kids? And you kind of hesitated. You said, I don't think I want kids.
Yeah.
And you were not even 35. You were 33-ish.
Right.
Yeah. By the way, that was another decision I made. When she said to me, I don't think I want kids, I went, oh, fuck yes. You scored about 20 points. You probably didn't realize that. She scored about 20 points for me because I had been in relationships with younger women who desperately wanted children. If I had, God forbid, settled down with HBM, which is what she wanted 2 kids. And that means I would have had 4 kids now. Oh my God, kill me. So no. So, okay, that was the 5th thing about the kids. So exactly, you want to discuss whether or not to have kids and how many kids you're going to have. And the problem is people don't do this. People just fall in love, they get NRE, they get married, and then they figure out all these difficult problems later once they're already living with each other and it's already an issue, depending what they do and depending what they don't do. And
they get married and they're like, wait, you don't want kids after they're married?
Yeah.
And then they fight and they end up getting divorced because, well, I wanted kids and he didn't. Well, then why
exactly.
did you get married?
Right. Why the hell? Well, not why did you get married? Why didn't you discuss this before you got married? It's such a simple thing that no one does. Exactly. So I didn't want to have these problems. So that's why if you are dating someone right now who you want to upgrade to OLTR and possibly a woman you spend the rest of your life with, hopefully, and we know the statistics, but hopefully, then you need to have the OLTR talk and go through every problem that she will encounter living with you in the long term, including things like having kids. Now, hopefully your list will not be as big as mine. Hopefully you're not going to say, well, I'm moving out of the country. And this, maybe you will, but I don't know, maybe you will. Maybe it'll be other things. For some other guys, it's things like, look, this is a common example that guys need to bring up at the OLTR talk. Hey, 2-3 times a week, I go out to the bar with my buddies. That's what I like doing. And that's not going to fucking change if we get married or move in together. So if you don't like that, you should go marry someone else. Or, hey, I love working on my car. And so I'm all weekend, I'm going to be working on my car. You don't like that? Go marry someone else because I ain't changing. Or I love watching sports. There are so many women who hate sports. They hate the sound of sports on the TV. I watch sports all the time. If you hate sports on the TV, you should go marry someone else, whatever it is for you. Maybe you're a computer nerd. Hey, I'm a computer nerd and I play Fortnite 8 hours a night or whatever the hell. Hopefully you don't. But whatever, fine. Or here's a big one. Hey, I smoke weed. I smoke weed every day. Again, I hope you don't. But I smoke weed every day. And if you don't like guys smoking weed, tough tits. You should marry someone else. And by the way, this is what I said to Pink Firefly. If you agree to this now and change your mind later, that is your problem. So if you say, I'm cool with you smoking weed, and then 3 years into the marriage, you say, now I don't like you smoking weed, you will have a decision to make. Put up with the weed or divorce me, because I ain't changing. That's how strong you have to be. And by the way, if a woman fails the OLTR talk, and sometimes they do, that's good. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. It's a good thing. You just saved yourself a lot of problems and hassle and drama and nightmares in your life. So if Pink Firefly had failed the OLTR talk, I would have been sad a little bit that day, but I would know I dodged a bullet. Now, thankfully, she passed. She passed with flying colors. Because one of the things the OLTR talk, I talk about this in my books, you want to watch the woman very carefully as you say these things. You want to watch the change of the expression on her face, which I did with her, and she was fine. She was fine during the whole talk. It's pretty good. So that's probably another reason why we have done so well. And so that means that in about 6 months, we hit the 4-year mark of a living together couple. And then next August, we hit our 4th wedding anniversary. But as of now, we have been married, in Pink Firefly's opinion, 3 years, in my opinion, 3.5 years. And we've been together for about 6.5 years or so. And hopefully we can make this right out for the rest of our lives. What I do, as a matter of fact, her and I were just discussing this a few days ago. What I do is I kind of set benchmarks 5/10 years at a time. So let's get to 5 years, and let's do another 5 years. So let's get to 10 years, let's do another 10 years. Now, Pink Firefly is more traditional. Her thing is, no, we're just going to be married forever. So the goal is to be married forever. So that's a slight difference in how we look at these things. But that's an example of the differences in how we look at these things. So anything you want to say before we end this lovely podcast? Miss Firefly?
No, I'm good.
All right.
Covered it.
Cool, dudes. All right. If this is a topic you guys want me to discuss more of, some guys really like these topics on open or non-monogamous live-in relationships or marriages, and some guys get very bored with these topics. So if this is a topic you want me to discuss more of on this podcast, I can certainly do that. So just let me know. All right. Have fun. Bye.